Welcome to the Dresden Files podcast, episode what? I don't remember.
We don't care anymore.
I stopped
That's
counting. Don't make me do
yeah.
math.
We're
we gotta
doing
be at
some
least the
more.
3000s.
We're doing some more episode development and how do we do the TV show today. And if you want to support us, you can support us on patreon.com/brokenjars, and I'll talk more about that in the end.
See, that we care about. We're doing the writer's room, and we're really bad at it, but we're having fun, and that's apparently what matters. So,
Yeah, it does.
yeah. So last time we left off in chapter 10 with Kincaid about to paint Harry Dresden all over the room, and then not. And then basically ending with some inner monologue of Dresden being frightfully concerned that Kincaid says he could kill him, and he believes him. So he just better make sure that he's good for the money afterwards, after hiring him to help hunt down Mavra's Scourge, right? So thus introducing our B plot for this season anyway. So that being said, chapter 11, he decides to go catch up with Murphy. It basically starts off with, kind of a montage, an inner monologue of him hating the internet because he's trying to dig up dirt on Genosa, mostly just to see if he can find an angle of who's trying to get him and why. And every time he calls somebody, it's an automated message pointing him to the website. And man, he's a wizard. He can't do that.
He can barely do phones.
Right. So he gets all grumpy about it and then decides he's going to go catch up with Murphy, who is already doing him a favor. So he should just ask her for more favors. This is where we get a nice little, visual of Mouse chewing on the Snoopy dog from Full Moon. And basically Mouse out in the, what's the waiting area of SI, more or less. And Dresden gets a little bit grumpy that Murphy is supposed to be watching him, and Rawlings is there. So we get a nice little conversation with Rawlings and Stallings. I got that backwards in my head, but my notes got me. So Stallings is there. And there's a bunch of fun, but basically Murphy's busy doing paperwork, and you know how she is when she's doing paperwork.
Grumpy.
And it's like, yeah, would you do me a solid and go let her know that I'm here? Nah, I plan to retire. You go let her know. So, but Murphy's not just mad about the paperwork. She's mad about the family reunion because she just found out that her sister announced her engagement. She still doesn't know who yet, but there's time for that. We can always ratchet up the tension. So,
so she chooses the day that she's already pissed off about family stuff to be pissed off about work stuff and just be pissed off everywhere. Like intentionally rubbing the salt in the wound to herself.
You don't always pick your work deadlines. So, but
I'm sure she could say, I can't do paperwork. There's a dead body. I mean, if anybody, there's a dead body, I have to, she gets to say, no, paperwork,
if
not
there's
today.
A dead body, if there's paperwork talking about a dead body, then sure. But yeah, what's that, Butters? You need me down at, the morgue to identify a body, so yeah.
Take me down the well, boy? That's the tone of voice I heard there.
Yeah, that's what Mouse is for. So, yeah. So there's a nice heart to heart between Dresden and Murphy, and Dresden talking about shit that he doesn't know, but from the other side that he does know. And basically look, I'm sure it's tough in a way that I don't have any ideas and whatever, but I will tell you not to take them for granted because, I wish that I had those problems right now. So that's about the most I could do. And she's like, yeah, you're probably right. So I'm not going to kill you for shoving your well-intentioned opinion down my throat in a vulnerable moment, just this once. So.
Yeah. I mean, in the setting of this conversation, I believe they go out from the office because if he sneezes at that computer and fries all the work that she's done, she will murder him. Yeah. And so they go down and she gets a candy bar and just like starts angrily biting into it. I think it's like trying to comfort herself with sugar, and so whichever candy bar gives us money is the one who gets the product placement.
Yeah. I mean, I've certainly got some of my favorites in mind, but yeah. So yeah.
I mean, we have to support the budget somehow. The state of Denmark can only pay for so much. I mean,
Oh.
we might have Novo Nordisk money, but the Greenland, we might lose that. It's like it's gonna be. I don't know how the budget's gonna handle it. So.
Well, see, we can actually like double or triple the budget if we just sell Greenland, right? So.
But we're expecting a lot of income from the minerals at some point. I think that's put in the budget somewhere. So.
Like after the permafrost melts?
Yeah.
That's an interesting take from a country that otherwise it seems, ecologically.
I don't think we're actually expecting money from them.
Yeah. I was like, oh, even the good guys have the dark side, that we're doing that now.
It was commendable long-term thinking, though.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, well played, everyone.
Better long-term thinking than when we essentially gave Norway a lot of, it's called Østersøen in Danish. I don't know what that's called in English, but a large region of water that is full of oil, like below, and we gave it to Norway for nothing 20 years ago, and they've been, or 30 years, and they've been living rich ever since on it.
Nice.
Yeah, that was a good day.
Yeah, I bet. Like, yay, they found oil. Good for them.
Good for them.
Yeah. Well, so that's chapter 11. Chapter 12, we meet Anari. Dresden goes back to the set, and a vaguely familiar girl with Princess Leia buns is there to greet him. And, there's a lot of back and forth, and you're not a scab, are you? Because she's the production assistant, or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, no, you're the production assistant, so technically I report to you. And apparently she's not, very cutthroat, because that doesn't really stop anything, right? Like, she could just take him out, and then she's got his job, right? But,
right, yeah.
This is also one of my favorite interactions with the whole, like, we're going to order pizza, but we're going to do vegetarian. So what do you want on your vegetarian pizza? Dead pigs and cows? They're vegetarians. So
yeah. The once in a while I end up thinking of this interaction and just think it's really, really stupid to try to force vegetarian pizza instead of just getting something not pizza.
Well, or what really kind of gets me, it's like they imply all the time how many people are on the set, right? You get a pretty broad cast, but even still there are like another 50% to double the amount of people that are there that are unnamed, right? They're not feeding everybody with a single pizza, right? And so it's like, she complains about the grease and everything like that, but I was like, you can just tell the dude he'll bring another bag, like you can make everybody happy. But anyway, so yeah. But instead we get Dresden being open to it, but still, fun comments like, I'm not really sure you can call bean curd pizza. So he'd probably have some things to say about Donar as well. And then, he at least eats the food, which, I would try it probably, but yeah, I'm like, let's just call it a tostada. Let's just crispy it up a little bit, slather some refried beans on top.
On tostada either.
Yeah, no. Okay. Well, I tried. So that was my angle, but
see, beans maybe on a tostada, but tofu, no.
Yeah. I don't eat a lot of tofu, so yeah.
There's so many other options other than pizza if she really is concerned about grease. Like,
sure. I mean, sandwiches is a great standby, like,
yeah. Right? They get them for parties for a reason.
Right. So yeah, 2 like 20-foot subs done. You just fed 40 people. So
they come in separate boxes. 10 in Dresden.
Like two 20-foot, 40 people? How many people?
Yeah. 2 20-foot subs.
One
40
for
people.
Me, one for the other guys. Like 40 people for one. No, I don't know. Yeah. I don't actually have a concept of how big a sandwich that is because I don't do foot, but it must be big.
it probably would touch wall to wall in your room, or close
Yeah.
to. So not the other way, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So like you have a foot, and I got to imagine it's going to be pretty close. Now just put 20 of those end to end. So.
And then you even see the foot long subway advertisements. They kind of generally have the right.
You were under the
metrics.
impression we have
Yeah.
a subway in Denmark?
Right.
I'm just assuming
Also-
that you've seen all our commercials.
Also, they're like third of a meter subs. They're not like foot long subs, whatever they call them in. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm looking at pictures of footlongs now, but they're not next to anything, so it's kind of hard to visualize.
Sure. Yeah. So,
I want a sandwich, though.
Anari escorts him to Genosa's office, and then more product placement. She asks him if Coke is okay, and he's like, "It's not like decaffeinated or anything, is it?" What? Yeah, I'm health conscious, not insane. So, yeah. And then he's like, "Oh shit, I don't remember." But anyway,
Well, this is a
So-
moment of Coke Zero and not regular Coke because he
Sure.
wanted full sugar and she's health conscious so no sugar, but it does have caffeine in it.
yeah, but she didn't.
This is kind of
also
like
know
Molly
sugar
and
either.
chugging
So-
monsters, right? Or whatever she's chugging. The unnamed
Yeah.
energy drink that's totally going to be Monster giving us money. She would be doing a sugar-free one.
I mean, Monster would be lucky to have us put them on the show. I mean, we've got monsters in the show all the time. So, like,
Just have a vampire crack open a cold monster and be like, Monster from Monsters. How much will they pay for that?
at least 12 cents. So,
We'll make it a bidding war between all
Right.
the different places.
I don't know if they're going to approach selling Greenland levels of money, though. So we'll just keep that on, under consideration. So,
Yeah, I mean, you better bring out the big wallet if you're gonna be buying Greenland. I'm just saying, you should talk to Trump
Yeah.
about that. You can just talk to him, right?
yes, we all have his number since he was elected.
I mean,
he's a
he
public
seems to like
representative.
talking, so maybe
Right.
just like random citizens call him up, like, "Oh yes, oh yeah, I would love to talk to you," and he just rants for an hour.
Yeah, that would be anyway. All right, so several things happen in this chapter, in this scene. He talks to Genosa. Genosa's very appreciative that he was able to save his people, even though Giselle has got scars almost certainly, and it's going to be hell for her career and everything. While they're in the middle of talking, we get to meet Trixie Vixen because she had it legally changed. So
Mhm.
don't call her Trish or Trisha or anything like that anymore.
Yes, but that, like the dialogue of him calling her Trish and then she snapping back at him of like it was legally changed, like that's really
Right.
important to her character.
No, of course. Yeah, that's all going to happen. So, but we get it, right? So we don't
Yeah.
we don't need to belabor the point and everything like that. But yeah, she it's always funny because it's like she's one of the hottest people on set, right? Dresden talks about that plenty. But then her name is like Trisha Scrump, and it's like one of the ugliest names. So pretty much tells you everything you need to know about her character in addition to her behavior, right? So yeah, she's going on and everything like that, and does the whole like, where's my latte? I sent you for it an hour ago, and it's like he just got here, so it couldn't have possibly been him. But yeah, right away, we'll get on that as like Arturo's like, oh God, please don't please don't set her off more.
She's the talent, unfortunately.
Yeah, right. If you could call it that. Because speaking of which, in comes Laura Wraith, or Laura Romani at this point. So she's actually a big name star, and everything like that, presumably anyway, because she has to wear a mask and go by a pseudonym, so that Trixie can be the main star and everything like that. And so they've got a lot of back and forth, and Trixie's very clearly intimidated and I think possibly confused, because this is where Lara has the conversation about like the best whips and chains are in the mind, and you should come do a scene with me and whatever. And Trixie seems to get a little bit flustered as she storms off, which that's supernatural imposing. That's cheating, so But
Lara doesn't know what her father is doing, but her father is working with Maud and Trixie and the other one to do the Malocchio, right? But Lara's unawares.
something like that. Yeah. So
But does Trixie know that she's working with Lord Wraith and that is Lara's father? I completely buy
apparently
that she
not,
wouldn't, but like,
Yeah.
that's a weird
Like
tangle.
I think Trixie barely knows what she's doing, let alone, what everybody else is doing. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I don't think he just takes him through the front door, right? So,
Right. But I don't know, just the comments about that Arturo was being complicated because he was always falling in love, which guess wasn't Lara who said that. It was
right.
other lady, I can't remember her
Joan.
name. Thank you. Um,
Yeah.
Being one
But
of
she
said
used-
ladies, right?
Yeah. Eventually. Yeah.
but Lara being kind of being sent there to deal with him. This is just kind of sloppy when trying to think about it, which maybe is to the point that Lord Wraith is sloppy in his plots. I kind
Sure.
of show that later.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, wheels within wheels, right? For the White Court anyway, but yeah, like yeah, I mean, he's sloppy and most good bad guys are because, crime doesn't pay, stay in school. Oh, also yeah, cuz he's got to get caught and he's got to get beaten, right? So, but all right. Let's see. So description, because that's a thing. So for Lara, since we're meeting her for the first time, she would have been tall even without the heeled faux Victorian boots and of Italian leather. Her hair was so dark that its highlights were nearly blue. A torrent of glossy curls held partially in check with a pair of milky ivory combs. She had eyes of dark gray with hints of violet twilight at their centers. I mean, dude's in love already. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Her clothes were effortless style, natural fabrics, black skirt and jacket embroidered with abstract dark crimson roses with a white blouse. So we'll get a better description in a little while that focuses more on her clothes, but no. It's funny because I am reading it this time with the knowledge of like 12 months coming in my head and my current head canon that I was like, I do think she's going to be a good fit for him, and we'll see, right? I'm probably wrong, which is why I don't bother trying to predict very much with the stories. It's like I'm bad at it, right? I get that. But like I'm reading this and like all of his descriptions, I'm like, if he does write these these journals afterwards, right? He talks about how much he didn't like her at first, but like who doesn't have that story or hasn't heard that story where it's like, like they walked into the party and I just couldn't stand them and just whatever, right? And so I'm like, some of that, like is what happened. And so Dresden's carrying on, but his descriptions of her, it's like bro's in love. Like he's writing this after the fact, like after they've been married, and he's worried about her reading his journals. And yeah, so it's been, I don't know, but it's given me a different dimension to read it through them this time. So
and that can possibly reveal some things. I mean, the enemies to lovers trope is very popular, but there's been enough time between them, and she has actually terrified him, like Turncoat when she had
mostly
fed
hot
on.
though,
I mean,
Yeah.
he definitely
Madeline.
understands the idea of being afraid and having an erection at the same time, but he was afraid.
Mark me down for scared. And
Don't we
afraid.
all?
So yeah, right.
So, like he does find her a monster, legitimately enough, more so than being intrigued on its own. So, and it is part of her magic that she is that beautiful.
Sure.
So, like,
Also lotion probably, but yeah. So
fake contacts.
yeah.
Yeah. she definitely does have a soft spot for him that you can see in different places, but it's not here, and it is much later. It's probably like Turncoat-ish or later.
It's by the end of this one, isn't it? So
Well, she gets out on top,
like
and she kind of understands that.
there.
I
Yeah.
think she starts liking him around White Knight, probably.
No, I mean definitely White Knight was that was the bouncy ball, right?
Yeah.
So that's where I was
Yes.
like, oh, she's like she's fallen for him. But I think there are hints earlier, and like there are plenty of little scenes where it's like going through this and paying more attention to what people are doing and what the descriptions are and stuff like that. She pauses to give him a lot of looks, right? And it's like you could imply that it's like obviously she's watching him because she's there for Lord Wraith's business. She's read his dossier and all of this other stuff, right? So everybody knows who Dresden is, but it's really not that far of a stretch to just be like, like under other circumstances, she would have a thing for him. But at this point she also just doesn't know how to do that anyway, right? Like in a few chapters with Bruce the physician, it's like, oh, you brought your physician, hope he's got enough of his mind left to treat her. Like Dad's like, she doesn't know how to not feed, right?
Hold on. She
so,
might. Lord Wraith might not.
but
And like that being a comment of how has she possibly been mistreated in the way that he is projecting the way he would have mistreated someone?
sure, possibly.
Yeah.
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 So
Lara does have a lot of respect for Harry, and especially using her goals to arrange for Lord Wraith to be trapped at the end of this book is commendable. And he took care of Thomas, which was her favorite brother that she couldn't accept. And so I think that does have a lot of friendliness that she has to him. And so there's also respect of just the abilities. But when she becomes more affectionate for him, I think is much later.
sure.
Maybe the White Knight area, White Knight Turncoat.
Yeah, we'll see. So, but okay. Yeah, let's see. Okay, so yeah, that scene more or less blends into like Arturo and Lara leave. End of chapter 12. Chapter 13, Dresden picks up the phone, calls Murphy, and he's flipping through a scrapbook that Arturo has of his articles and movies and just his life, apparently, which is very convenient for Dresden to get an info dump on, what kind of person Arturo is. And so he called Murphy to get an update on the homework that he gave her of trying to track down finances and these other companies that he's worked with and just whatever kinds of information and leads that she might track down. And it's kind of funny because one of Murphy's lines is like, like Arturo has a different idea of sex and sexuality and and everything like that. And it's like, sex is natural, sex is good. Not everybody does it, but everybody should. Hey, I'm the wise ass. You're the cop. Respect my boundaries. So, which he gets his thunder stolen a few times, which is kind of funny. Like not just from her, but yeah. But the main feature from this outside of that conversation is that this is where he nearly gets assassinated by some random cloaked figure, right? Basically, he's just chit-chatting and the hallway is dark. And then he sees a shadow in the doorway and just instinctively grabs like the ashtray off of Arturo's desk and flings it at this person, thumps them or scares them otherwise. And they miss with a poisoned blow dart. And it's just like, what? Why?
Yeah.
That's just such an odd way to be assassinated in this day and age, So
But that's after Murphy starts listing off all of the different ways of saying boobs, right?
Well, yeah, sure. But yeah, so yeah, because Murphy gets her digs in here. Like earlier, we had Bob talking about the different magazine covers, and then Murphy comes up with a few extra ones. So if you're ever looking to get into that business, there are several names to choose from already.
I mean, Murphy wasn't naming off a magazine covers; it's just like all the different euphemisms.
She does that too, right? It's like she's got very well endowed boobs, jugs, yeah, like on and on. So you're a girl. I'm not supposed to talk to you about that, stupid Dresden. So
yeah.
But yeah. Um, yeah, so they talk about it like Harry's like hanging out in the hallway and he's like, "Huh, I'm backlit in a dark hallway. If they were going to take a second shot, they'd do it now." And then like closes and locks the door and everything. And Murphy's like, that was attempted murder. That kind of is in my ball court. They were just trying to scare me with a poison blow dart. Like still easier ways to do that, like blow up the blue beetle or something. But whatever. So
Leave threatening messages or something, but a
Right.
blow dart doesn't do much.
Yeah, like call you on the phone and be like, "I'm in the house. Where am I? You want to play a game?" So, like, anyway, chapter 14 is going to be real fun to film because there's a lot of Dresden not watching the action, and stuff like that. And like, we're a visual media. There's no inferences here,
And we're on streaming service, right? So we can go all out if we want, right? How sleazy do we want to go?
Yeah, we don't need to have like Dresden like eating popcorn in the back of that being the primary action, but you're certainly going to have actors and actresses walk past, I imagine, and stuff like that, and you're going to see the set within a set, like we've got to film the movie within a movie now, so who's going to direct that and everything, but yeah, I think Lara goes to take the set and Trixie storms out. And then while Dresden is just trying to keep an eye on things, but not those things, that's when somebody runs, which, Dresden just almost got assassinated. So, of course, he's going to go pursue this mysterious figure that is totally not Thomas. So,
what the fuck is Thomas doing?
I think he was just like trying to watch, like to also make sure people were safe. Not like that. So, yeah, this mysterious figure stands up, zips up his pants, and then runs. So, yeah. Yeah, no, it's pretty stupid, but it's an excuse to get Dresden and Thomas and everybody outside, right? For all these actiony scenes that are coming up. So Dresden chases him down, and he's been practicing running now a little bit, I think, and so between that and his long legs, he's able to catch up, and he does the whole like kick his heel, to trip him up thing. And when he goes down, he while he's stumbling, Dresden like tackles him as well and starts brawling him, gets him in a chokehold with his blasting rod and everything. And then yeah, the line's like, Thomas has been lying. Also, water is wet. I think I just added that for my notes because it's like, and then he's like, give me some reason why I shouldn't blast you right now. And then Lara's like, I'll give you two because she's also run up here.
Yeah, in the 6-inch stiletto heels.
Yes. Yeah, apparently my description of this didn't make it into my notes, but yeah, she's wearing lingerie and heels and has two little guns that we're not going to ask where she's found room for those or anything like that. So and then while they're talking, and it's like, I need you to let go of my brother and whatever, and then she's like, holy crap, wait, you're Harry Dresden? Like, don't feel bad. I cleverly concealed my identity as Harry, the production assistant. So
there are a lot of opinions on this book, whether how good or bad it is. I personally find it quite good, but the quippiness in this book is so good.
Yeah, it's pretty good. So, so interesting note, they're outside, and he takes a moment to note the fact that the autumn breeze is pushing her hair around. So, totally doesn't have feelings or anything like that. That's something a detective would notice, of course, private investigator. So
once in a while he detects something.
Yeah. He's detected a few things with regards to her. Yeah, I mean, I left out the part too that it's like in the previous chapter when she like walks by and whatever, like he was in the middle of talking to Joan and he practically gets paralyzed by her presence. And when she walks in the first time, like with Arturo's thing, he has to actually go through exercises to like seal off that part of him because her just passive presence and everything like that. And then him being like, him noting that Arturo wasn't affected, which I'm thinking about now in hindsight is because Arturo's in love, and so she has no effect on him.
Yep.
So
And that is the annoying thing that she's trying to disrupt, because he's always being so troublesome, always falling in love and
Right.
being
Really hard to
uncorruptible.
control when he's always in love. And
Right.
true love, because Thor just really loves.
Yeah, right. So he's just got such a big heart and wallet. So yeah. And then Thomas and Lara are having a moment about, his plans and what he's trying to do and why are you involved in this and all this other stuff. And he makes some comment and she's, she narrows her eyes. You've been reading Machiavelli again to Justine every night at bedtime. So, yeah, so kind of funny, but then let's see. Oh, that doesn't happen till later. Okay, so, but I think at the end of this, basically they get accosted by the 3 Black Court babies, the vampires. He goes through different things of like, one ear is deadly, but still practically like a small child as far as like the Black Court are concerned, but he's got 2 babies with him, by comparison. They're like teenagers, but as far as Black Court vamps go, they're infants. They're just newborns. Creepy fucking newborns, but still.
Yeah.
Um,
Baby monsters.
Oh, that's still later. Okay, so this is actually like Thomas makes a dive for it because Lara's like, I'm very much going to shoot both of you now, and so like Thomas runs past Dresden. Dresden tries to grab the gun, but he's not an action hero really, and he misses. So he decides to take advantage of the distraction and shoot fire at Lara, but doesn't have any control. So nice 30-foot cone of flame and roaring and everything like that. But he uses that distraction to finally get his shield up. So nice little, blue-white energy, a couple of pings off of that as Lara starts shooting at him again. She's also pretty bad. Like, he respects her in this moment, and she's like, oh, very action star and everything like that. But she misses a bunch, right? So it's not like she's like supernaturally good at guns. She's just kind of like normally good at guns,
Yeah, you still need to practice with guns.
Sure. Yeah. Shooting very much practice. So
and if they're tiny guns, they probably have a lot of kick.
Yeah. I think here she does shoot Thomas in the leg and in the chest, hits him in the lung and everything like that, because that's when Anari finds them. Lara had run away. Anari finds them and is like, oh my God, what did you do to Thomas? And it's like, I don't have a gun. I obviously didn't shoot him. But while he's trying to like help Thomas and is distracted and Anari's distraught, she takes his blasting rod and breaks it over the back of his head and neck. So now he's got 2 blasting rods, but he more or less gets, knocked out or mostly unconscious. And that's when the Black Court shows up. So Anari has a horror movie scream, because they are clearly walking corpses and everything like that. Right. Yeah. It's like, so yeah, we need you to look like a teenage Princess Leia who can scream like with all the greatest scream queens, right? Maybe we'll send her to Jamie Lee Curtis for notes or something, but yeah. So, and then you get a scene. Maybe she hadn't run off yet, but it's like you get a scene of like Laura spinning to face them, which I was like, that's cinematic as hell in my mind, because it's like you can do the spin across the opposite way that she's spinning, type of moment, to be like, oh no, there's 3 of them, So yeah, chapter 7, everybody's favorite scene that never comes back again. Dresden uses the bear buckle, and we've never heard fans ask when this is going to come back or anything like that, So we get a whole like half a page or 3 of Dresden talking about how it's life force itself, it's pure magic, it's mana, it's whatever you want to call it, as he taps into the bear buckle and more or less just like pops up, and then it's like, yeah, I think we should join forces, for a little while. Temporary truce, peace for 24 hours, groovy, So
Because even though
Um,
the Black Court vampires are technically on the same side as the White Court, Black Court vampires are still going to be eating Lara's face.
Yeah, and they made that very clear. That, and they're about to actually, because Mavra starts communing through one of the babies, and talking about how lucky she is that she's going to be able to knock off Dresden and 3 of the wraiths, including Lord Wraith's like right hand, all in one go. So, and then, as if we're not busy enough, the Malocchio starts building, and Dresden can feel that. And I had totally forgotten who the target was at this point, because I was like, how does he redirect it now versus everything else later? And it's because it's going to go get after Inari. So,
Which
so
they
yeah,
had not gotten permission to do.
sure.
Right. That's
Yeah. Right. So proof that Lord Wraith has no fucking idea what's going on, right? And they have
Yeah.
no idea what's going on, that,
Communication, the thing that pisses off Lara the most.
right. Right. So you're saying she's got daddy issues about communication. So had to be said. So so the Malocchio is coming in, and it's like, I don't know, being a nerd, there are like only 2 ways that come to mind being able to do this. The first is you go full Evil Dead, and you basically just do a camera shot from above, and you get the just like as the Malocchio is like running around trying to find its target, which I would find hilarious, but I'm not sure that's gonna fly. But the other thing is, like, you could have Dresden looking around, like he could see it, or something, because it's like, how do you imply that Dresden in this moment knows that this curse is coming without doing inner monologue, right?
Some form of twinkly lights that only he can see, or something.
Oh, good. Yes. The entire time I'm watching this in my head, I'm very much thinking, like, how do we do this better than if it had been done in the 90s or the early 2000s with like his shield and like the flash of light and whatever? And it's like, graphics are better these days and we can do better, but it's so 90s in my head, like some of these fight
There's
scenes.
that, and also
So
some of the movies from the 90s and early 2000s are better than any of the shit that we have now, and so maybe that was just peak cinema.
But you know what I'm talking about. Like, how do we elevate this beyond the previous incarnation of the Dresden Files, or like the Merlin miniseries, and just
Yeah, I get the problem. I don't have a great answer,
right.
because it's still a visual medium, and we can't have him just narrating every single thing.
Sure. No, yeah, for sure. So yeah, but I think we can get the point across for people who know, where he could at least be like, ah, crap, not now, and start looking around or something, or
maybe
like I said,
auditory with like spooky music of like when he like looks at Inari and then music changes or something.
Right. Also very 90s. Okay, got it. So yeah, so anyway, so the curse is closing in. While he's distracted about that, the vampires attack, and they are super fast. So again, 90s, right? Because they just like blur, like practically blink and you miss them type of fast. But he's taken, his bear juice or whatever you want to call it. So he's ready for it ish. He just kind of like instinctively dodges the first vampire and tries to stake him like Buffy, and realizes, yeah, that works better in the TV show. Because he doesn't.
But he has to say the line to Inari. Like, that's what really important.
Yes. Yeah, he does. Like, oh my God, what do we do? Make like Buffy, what? That's the best part, is that she's not seen the show. So she has no idea.
Because at this point, she'd be too young. I mean, like, if you want to have that current day, she's like 19. That puts her at like 2005.
Which
can you not say that?
I have a new person working with me at work. No. She is 19. I am realizing how this movie is before her time.
For the last decade with you. So yeah, this is called Just Desserts. So yeah. Yeah. So anyway, it depends, right? Because we haven't entirely settled the idea on whether or not we're being anachronistic or not, right? So the book may be taking place in 2005, and therefore she would have been born in the late 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something.
So Yeah. Not going to think about that anymore. Let's see. There was something else I was going to say. Oh, making like Buffy. Oh, yeah. What I was going to talk about is like one thing that's always kind of bothered me about a lot of fantasy, like modern fantasy and like especially science fiction and stuff like that, is that they never seem to be quite genre aware, right? Where that's like, you've got other references in the universe and whatever. And so, like, we know from Dresden, like, we know Star Wars is canon in the Dresden verse. We know Harry Potter is a thing. We know that Buffy is a thing, and so it's like, really, there ought to be, shorthand for this. And as much as you love to hate on it, it was one of the things that I liked better about, Avengers Endgame, was that they were like, oh, we're going to do a time heist like these dozen other time movies. And so they were trope aware of those things while they're kind of doing their plans and whatever. And it always tickles me when Dresden makes some kind of reference. And it's funny though, because no one gets his references, so it doesn't really help him any, right? We get them, those references are for the fans. But it's like, I guess we need to run into a character that it's like, wait, how do you know so much about killing vampires? Like, I've read all of the material and watched all of the shows, like, so.
And yet magically they're never knowledgeable in those types of conversations. Of like, Thomas would probably get the reference about Buffy because I think he's a secret nerd, but
Yeah.
he's like incapacitated. Butters
Sure.
completely understands everything about Star Wars and Star Trek if he was going to make a reference to that, but he's not present right now.
Right. Yeah.
And some of that I think is to put the joke on Dresden. Like, other people are normal and don't know those pop culture references because
Excuse me.
Dresden's the weird one.
Excuse me. Buffy was fine at the time. Like a lot of this other stuff we found out in hindsight. Okay. So so there were dozens of people who watched that show. Dozens. So apparently not in Chicago though. So
they probably just had
Yeah.
really private, highfalutin education of no, you will know the classics and all the different languages and not anything to do with pop culture. The Wraiths.
Yeah, I don't know that we ever see a TV at Lord Wraith's house, so that makes sense. We talk about their water heater, we talk about the sex pit, we talk about the locks on the door, but no one ever talks about what Thomas would be watching on the TV. So,
right,
yeah.
and he's reading Machiavelli to Justine at night.
Reading.
They're not like, they're not watching
Netflix
dumb
and
TV
chill.
shows.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So,
and then when Lara
makes
takes
sense.
over, the place becomes an actual office with like computers and printers and paperwork and things. Like, she makes it a business.
Right. Sex sells. So, Anyway. Okay. So Black Court vampires are very fast and very dangerous, even if they're newborns. One closes with Inari, and she basically does the helpless damsel thing and more or less just gets crushed immediately. And, her,
I mean, she is
her
just
arm gets
mortal
broken.
here, right?
Ish,
Until they are
for all
awakened.
intents and purposes. Yeah. Yeah. She's a changeling, right? She hasn't made her choice yet. So, but I know that's a different thing, but it's pretty close.
I mean, I get the analogy, right? But
Yeah.
they almost
Yeah.
don't even have a choice in the White Court, right? It's specifically kept secret for them, and then it's very hard to fight the hunger.
In her case, yeah. So then this is when the like in a little bit the curse basically comes in, and Dresden's left arm grabs Inari's right arm. So they probably broke her left arm for simplicity's sake, even though that's not like expressly called out that I remember. But Dresden's left arm grabs her right arm because then the Malocchio grabs her, and he has this whole thing about the right side is where you project the energy and the left side's where you bring it in. So him being a magic nerd, he's linked up the circuit so that she can project the curse into him and he can pull it out of her, and everything like that. It was just a fun little detail. Yeah. And then there's a bunch of inner monologue about having the curse sucks. I don't remember if it's here, but there's basically a line about how like Dresden doesn't believe in evil magic. He thought that magic was just kind of like energy, like electricity or whatever, but the curse made him think otherwise, and very much he believes in evil magic now. Like this was caused like for a purpose, and it's tearing him up inside and all of this other stuff. And then he projects the curse at one of the Black Court vampires. And that's where we get the turkey moment, right? So the plucked bird must have fallen from an airplane overhead, doubtlessly manipulated by the curse. By the time it got to the ground, the turkey had already reached its terminal velocity and was still hard as a brick. The drumsticks poked up over the vampire's crushed chest, their ends wrapped in red tinfoil. So I could just imagine, we've got like a 30-pound turkey, and legs, and then just like the turkey legs and everything like that. But
and then the timer pops out.
Yes, and then the timer popped up. The vampire gasped and writhed a little more. The timer popped out of the turkey. Everyone stopped to blink at that for a second. I mean, come on. Impaled by a guided frozen turkey missile? Even by the standards of the quasi-immortal creatures of the night, that ain't something you see twice. Like in 1,000 years, one of these, like Laura, she's like, you guys won't fucking believe the night we met. So, like
that would be
like,
funny.
Everyone's
at the
like,
wedding,
you're full of
like,
shit.
tell us stories of like, how did you meet? How did this come about? Well, we met when he killed something with a turkey.
Right.
A frozen turkey.
Yeah. That fell from space. I don't know. So
this other time, there wasn't. No, wait, she wasn't there for the end of the, was she?
No.
For the anvils.
Yeah, the anvil in the graveyard.
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure he's gonna tell her the story, or he'll tell that story. But like, you guys think that's good? I told those sons of bitches next time anvils, and then I
cannot believe he gave him a weird, obscure wizard's children's disease just to bring home that
happen.
joke.
Yeah,
I can entirely believe it.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep.
So I forget all the mechanics here, but basically Thomas winds up getting jumped on by one of the Black Court vampires, even though he's almost dead, and uses up most of the last of his reserves to just fling it backwards off of him into some bricks and shatters a brick wall and everything like that. Let's see. Oh, what is she doing here? Oh, yeah. So Lara has basically more or less. Yeah, Laura's basically more or less beaten one ear, who's now going to turn into one eye. That's what's going on. Is like she's beaten him and everything like that, and she starts shooting his limbs out. She's shot like knees, elbows, and one of his eyes. So now he's one eye. And then he's doing the classic villain thing of like, this won't stop me, and she's like, I don't need to, just slow you down. I'll be after you in hours, one ear, one eye said. Look somewhere sunny, she responded. Au revoir, darling. So the gun's hammer clicked down and silence ensued, which is bad.
Always count your bullets.
So, yeah, right. Yeah, she's clearly not Archer, so she's not autistically counting bullets during the gunfight.
They had two small guns. Were they revolvers? They only have like 6 shots each. Like, you have to be careful with these things.
I think they were semi-automatic. Yeah.
Okay.
So she's not a wizard. So, but
and she doesn't have any place to hide any other mags. So just
right.
Be conservative.
And she was already doing the Hong Kong movie thing, shooting at Thomas in Dresden earlier. So she probably used up like half of it there. So. But yeah, so one ear, one eye, and one of the other babies basically start feeding on Lara. They get a hold of her, pin her to the wall, all this fun imagery and everything like that could be used later. And then Dresden does the tactical thing, unfortunately for Lara, and waits for them to get really busy and distracted before he closes in, and basically takes one of her heels and stakes one of the vampires. And apparently they don't dust. They just curl up like a spider, after screaming for, a few seconds and things like that. And then Dresden takes his pentacle, and there's a bunch of, inner monologue about the pentacle and everything like that. But Dresden, manifests that into like blue-white fire as well. And while he's closing in, on one eye. One eye is smoking and being driven back and everything like that. But he also crosses paths with one of the babies that's otherwise been taken out. I don't remember if it's the turkey one or whatever. I think it is the turkey one, but basically that one bursts into fire. So there's something about, their metaphysical, power that one ear gets to like run and whatever, and the other one just bursts into fire and has to deal with it. And then for, I think it's the staked one, Lara basically falls on it and starts beating it to death with her bare hands and then rips its head off. So now she's covered in gross, which is going to be fun for filming the rest of these scenes, because she's basically in lingerie that barely qualifies as covering anything. And now she's covered in vampire, stuff. So
vampire smoothie.
Right. Yeah. So, yep. So, let's see. Basically after that, there's some conversation about, about having to try and get everybody back to the wraiths and everything. Chapter 18, there's a lot, like a montage of Dresden's got to run back to Arturo's warehouse where he's filming. He goes in, he didn't even have his duster on this entire time. He just like ran out without his duster, which was a big reason why he was worried about fighting and getting shot and everything like that. So he's got to get his duster. His duster had his keys. I think Mouse was there. He picks him up and puts him in the pocket and everything like that. So a lot of visual stuff, to key off of. But he basically gets the Blue Beetle with its one headlight and goes and picks up Lara, Anari, and Thomas. And then they start making for the wraiths. And Lara makes some comment about like she doesn't know the address. She can only guide him. And for his inner monologue anyway, it's like, yeah, I'm really good at following her instructions and I better not be later. So so she guides them up, the North Coast and everything like that to the Wraith estate. The house we finally pulled up to had multiple wings, multiple stories, and a couple of faux castle turrets. It had cost somebody 8 digits and could have doubled as the headquarters of the villain in a James Bond movie. Old timber had grown up around it and was manicured into an idyllic forest of rolling grass green hummocks and beautiful, shapely trees wreathed in ivy and autumn leaves. Small lit pools were dotted here and there, each shrouded with its own low cloud of evening mist. So they start going to get in the house, and there's a voice lock on it. Lara says Lara Wraith, and then the door clicks open and opens right as the Wraithmobile shows up. So they're like halfway in the door
dead
with
just from the presence of Harry Dresden. Like,
oh, the lock.
Yeah.
There's implications here that the house has been wizard proofed. So, maybe he's drained, and whatever, and he's not projecting his Murphyonic field or something, but
okay.
But yeah. So Papa Wraith shows up. You get a description here of the Barbies and the Kens, 2 sets of identical twins. Good luck, the casting department, unless we cleverly just cut so that they're not on screen at the same time, and you just see them. But
cowards, got to be 2 sets of twins.
Got it. So with our unlimited budget and time,
product placement's going to help with this.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. This is where we get our first description of Lord Wraith, which is funny because like Dresden is being Dresden here and kind of stupid, and he's like, oh shit, this is dad, but the air grew suddenly colder as if the Almighty had flicked on the air conditioning. A man slid out of the car. He was about 6 feet tall, dark of hair and pale of flesh. He was dressed in a white linen suit with a silver gray silk shirt and Italian leather shoes. There was a scarlet gem of some kind fixed to his left earlobe, though his fine straight hair hid it until a breeze briefly tossed the dark strands to one side. He had long spatulate fingers, broad shoulders, and eyes of a drowsy jaguar. Geez, cannot read today. And he was better looking than Thomas. Duh. You know. So he closes in whatever the chapter ends. Chapter 19 basically is the whole, like, Lara is placating, right? And she's playing the demure daughter and everything like that. And Wraith is trying to pretend that he's magnanimous and like, we're not in a function. You don't have to be so formal and all this other stuff. And then they acknowledge Dresden, and Dresden's like, "Will you shut your mouth and help Thomas now?" And it's like, "Yeah, normally I'm not used to being talked to like that." It's like, "Oh, okay. Will you shut your mouth and help Thomas, please?" So, you know, but they get ready to kill Dresden. The Kens and the Barbies all pull their guns and everything like that, and Lara panics and like, "Wait, I gave him our word of of everything, and he's helped save Anari and sort of Thomas, and everything." He's like, "Well, I guess it'd be churlish of me not to repay a debt that I owe you." So there's a lot of conversation about like, oh well, take Anari to Bruce if he's got enough mind to treat her. Take Thomas to Justine and everything like that, which they do. They go to Thomas's private room, and they're being followed by one of the Barbies, I think. And basically, she's there to dispose of the body.
Mm-hmm.
So they go in, and Justine had been sleeping. And you get the whole like, "Oh no, Thomas, oh my god, I love him so much even though I'm food," and Dresden trying to talk her out of it and be like, Thomas is almost certainly going to die. Would he want you to die instead? And all of this other stuff. But Justine loves him too much. So she basically just like tosses her robe and walks out, and then we never see her again, ever. So chapter 20, he wakes up. Yeah, whatever. We can save that for next time. So we got 3 minutes left. So
did we go through all the prepared content?
Yeah, we are getting into chapter 20. I didn't finish. That's part of why. Like, let's not push it.
So we had the appropriate amount of tangents here.
Yes.
Yeah. I really tried to keep the balance. Nailed it.
Good job. And it's good because nobody caught on to our ways either.
Yeah, no.
Totally pulled one over on the audience.
Yep. Want me to just do the pluggies now, or do we got something you want to fill the last couple of minutes with? Okay, I'll do the pluggies. You can catch us live every Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern. You can support us on Broken Jars, patreon.com/Broken Jars. You'll get access to our Discord there if you do, where we have gift wars. You can come in and tell me how right I am, how wrong E.G. is. He's not here to defend himself, therefore this is fine. And leave us a comment on the YouTube video. Give us a like. That helps a ton.
Yep. But there's something about saying pluggies that is just